Hey, what's up, guys? It's MLG, and I want to talk about my new experience with the 7C Second Edition. I played with Mobius Method, aka Jason, aka the man from Utah, aka Geek Manifesto, and we had a blast trying some of the 7C Second Edition mechanic. We had this you know one shot kind of tutorial thing where we set up all kinds of mechanics in order to to test it out, and it was really fun. I'm sorry, I'm shivering, it's still cold in here. It was really fun, but it's really interesting. It's exactly what I thought it would be, so it's for that reason it's super dope, but it needs some getting used to. This game is the way I would describe it is that the system is so powerful. Like, this is the right word, powerful, because what it does is that it forces you to change, to apply a certain method of narration. You cannot narrate the way you want. It's not your basic skill check. It's not your, like, I want to do this, okay, roll that, or neither the player, cannot use their skill to find out things. You cannot go like, oh, I'm gonna use this because I want to know if I know this answer to this problem, or I want to know if I know about something, so I'm gonna roll this and that. It doesn't work that way. So it's on another level of abstraction kind of thing. It's a little bit more abstract in that sense, where it's this game is super cinematic. Like, it's definitely the most cinematic game I've played, because first, there is no combat rules. Like, there is like three system kind of thing, and it's all based on the same thing. You have your risk, you have your action sequence, you have your dramatic sequence, and the idea is that these are mechanical structure allowing you to achieve scenes. It's to produce scenes in a collaborative way between the player, intentions and agency, using the mechanic to change the scene the way you want it to happen, and the way the GM proposed it, through the consequences and the opportunities. So Jason and I, we had some issues sometimes, because we were like, okay, so how does that work? Okay, I want to climb that wall to do this. Okay, so that's a risk. So the consequence is that you get 3 wounds from exhaustion, you fall, you get 1 dramatic wound, and you get caught by the guards, and there's no opportunity. So Jason needs to roll and do all this thing. But if he wants to have a flare die, a flare die for narration, he needs to narrate into. So the structure is, great narration brings you to the risk. Therefore, you can get the flare point, the flare die. So the flare dies. So it's really there's a little need to get used to, kind of thing. Like, and then therefore afterwards, so you think it's like the player needs to think about his intention during narration, and then when he wants to express it, needs to express it through a cool narration, like, bringing it in, kind of thing. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not necessarily an easy thing to, at least at the beginning, right, to remember. And then the other challenge is to do the meta gaming of the mechanic, where you roll the dice, you use your raises, you choose the consequence and the opportunities and all that, and then you narrate what happened, and that brings you to another cycle of narration toward an action sequence and another risk or a dramatic sequence. Now, in terms of combat is not an easy thing to understand. We are used to combat rules. All games have subsystem. Most games I've played that has combat into it as a subsystem for it. So there's a way to go about hitting and getting wounds and soaking damage and round by round thing, and change from games to game, and it's all good. But in 72nd edition, it's an action sequence. It's the same thing as group of people trying to escape a sinking boat, right? Let's say, for example, there's a sinking boat going. You are on a sinking boat and everything is crashing into the water, and you want to reach the other boat on the side to save your life, kind of thing. And there's a party of four adventurers. You do an action sequence where the players are all having their own scene into this gigantic scene, and they spend race to achieve what they want, kind of thing. Well, if you're in a combat against a villain or against two brute squad or whatever, it's kind of like the same thing. It's just a bunch of everybody rolls and they spend their raises the way they want, and then they get to soak damage or they get to inflict damage, but it's all about the raise. So how many rays you want to spend on damage, and how many rays you want to spend on soaking, and who's gonna have the last word on that? I'm gonna need to practice it again. I don't get it still, because it's like, and also it's so cinematic. Like I said, it's an abstract. It's just on another layer. We're used to combat simulator where you like, for example, Jason was trying to like bring the guy to the ground, like making him prone, like his villain was fighting a villain and we wanted to make him prone, like on the ground. For some reason, like in D&D or Combat Simulator, you do that and you have advantages. But in 7C, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You bring him prone or you hit him. You want to hit him, he's gonna die. You don't want to bring him prone. It doesn't matter. You just spend a raise. So it's not about these little tactic of simulation. It's really about creating a cool scene. So it's just on another layer. It's really hard to explain. There is no gear. Doesn't matter if you have a great sword or a golden sword or a magic sword. It at least the way I get it right now, I haven't read into supplements or anything, but just in the core, it doesn't change anything. The way your gears, it's not a gear game. It's a cinematic, cool narration game. They don't care. I mean, runes are creating equal. The only difference I see is the guns. Guns are super slow to reload. There is a paragraph explaining it, but when they hit you, it's a dramatic wound. But because you have two kind of wounds, you have the dramatic wounds and you have the normal wound. Normal wound, they heal up after a scene, so they don't really matter. They stack up because they bring you to dramatic wound if they reach a certain level, but they don't they don't really matter that much, because after the scene they heal up automatically. So the gun is different from all the other weapon because it causes you one dramatic wound right away. But that's all. I think that's the only difference I see from gear to gear. You choose. You want a blade, your fist, or a club, or you want a gun. So it's not really granular that way. It's really anyway. So it's a really cool game. We're gonna start our mini campaign. It's supposed to be 5 sessions. There's all kinds of stuff I would like to talk about, but yeah, that's my first impression on 7C second edition. After a couple games, you get used to that mechanical structure and the way you want to do scenes, because there's many ways. You can do it in dramatic sequence, you can do it in action sequence, or you can do it in just risk by risk. And the mechanic runs itself. It's really smooth. It's really cool. I mean, once everybody is on the same page, I understand the way you narrate, and as a GM, you get good at creating cool consequences and getting the right balance between consequences and opportunities, and because the game is super easy, like in the sense of you don't fail much. as a player. Everything is made for you to achieve what you want. It's really, I mean, and there's a GM game and also a player game. That's another thing. You know, you as a GM we have danger pool. So and there's a really cool economy between the player and the GM, because every time I buy danger pool from them, they get hero points. So it's like, do I want a danger pool right now, or I want to leave him where he is? And I don't know. There's all kinds of cool stuff in this game. So I could talk about it for hours, but yeah. So I'm gonna do a great a real review after we play the full campaign. But yeah, that's what I have to say about it. So have you played 7C? Do you have any tips? 7C second edition. Do you have any tips on creating cool consequences versus opportunities? I know Red Dice Diaries, you've been playing it for a while, I think, on your channel. So if you have any tips on how to do the combat, or how to create cool consequences that are not repetitive, and cool opportunities as well, and especially the action sequence, it's really hard to understand, but it seems like at the same time really smooth. So if you have any tip on that, or anybody, just please let me know in the comment section or through a video response. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.